Hello, welcome to my show, Amit. Thank you very much for your time. Could you introduce yourself in both Japanese and English?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Akari 先生。こんにちは。私の名前はアミトです。25歳で、今、サンフランシスコにソフトウェアエンジニアの仕事にやっています。4年前に日本語の勉強を始めました。その1年後に大阪にある大学に留学生しました。So my name is Amit, and I'm 25 years old, and I am a software engineer in San Francisco. 4 years ago, I started learning Japanese, and 1 year after that, after I started learning Japanese, I went to Osaka to go to a university as a foreign exchange student.
Thank you. So let me ask you some questions. So first of all, what made you interest in Japan like 4 years ago or before that?
I think my interest in Japan stems from my interest at the time from watching anime and reading manga. And I was very interested in listening to Japanese music, and I figured it would be a different culture and a lifestyle based on what I read and watched. So I was interested in the culture and somewhat interested in the language. And so I decided that I would try to learn Japanese to enhance my language skills and then eventually one day either do a study abroad or work there.
Yes, I see. So how did you start learning Japanese?
So initially, I tried to take many online courses. I discovered italki about 4 years ago, and I started taking Akari sensei your classes. And to supplement that, I was also going to university, and our university had a Japanese minor, which I took the first 2 years of, and I took a year and a half of these Japanese courses on top of what I was taking to italki lessons to learn basic Japanese.
I think at that time you just started, so you start learning Japanese from zero, right?
Right. I had no knowledge of Japanese. I didn't even know how to say hello. My name is Amit.
So I feel so happy to see how much you improved, because I know the beginning.
Yes. Yeah. You've basically been my teacher since like the very beginning of me learning a language. And now, even though I haven't mastered it completely, I'm still taking classes and I'm still persevering to becoming better and eventually mastering this language. And I hope I can do it in the next couple of years.
Yeah, your Japanese is very advanced now. So yeah, you make me very proud, and I feel like he's my student.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, next question. So after you study abroad to university in Osaka, how was the experience? Like, how was your experience studying abroad?
I had a very nice experience. The university I went to called Kansai-gaidai. I recommend anybody who wants to study abroad to go to that university. It's located in Osaka, and I took the option of staying with the host family, which I thought was the best option. I've heard many scary stories that they might have had like a bad host family or something went wrong. But my experience was very enjoyable. I had no problems. I had a wonderful family. And the best part is that I was always immersed in the language because my host family spoke Japanese and English and French. And that made it much easier for me to switch from English when I was having a difficult time communicating and then use Japanese on a day-to-day basis so that I would learn and not just talking English all day long. And I think that's what really propelled me in learning a language because the most important part, not just living in a different country, the most important part of just, being in a different country is speaking that language on a day-to-day basis. You don't forget the simple words and you start learning more advanced words. And I had many friends there, and they also helped me. And they, till this date, they still help me. I talk to them on a daily basis, and it was a really great experience. I did more than what the university had asked. I took the classes and whatnot, but I also did a lot of my own adventures. I traveled around Japan myself, and I think that also helped, where I was by myself in situations where I couldn't speak English, and those adventures were daunting at the time, but extremely valuable and a lot of fun.
Yes, one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you is because I never see anybody who was active like you, because usually when you study abroad to come to Japan, they don't have much, first of all, they don't have much money to travel much, but you are smart enough, so you brought a job so that you're doing some jobs and earning money by using computer.
Right.
So
yeah,
right, make money during your staying here.
yeah. I was doing. I was working for a genetics lab. We were trying to figure out if we could use DNA patterns to see if people have cancer. And through that wasn't the point of my study abroad, but I was just doing that as like a side job. And I was a computer science major, so I was using this program to determine if people had cancer, like using their DNA in certain sections. But more than that, that helped. That also supplemented my ability to do a lot of things that other students couldn't do. So with the extra cash, I could travel a little bit more, I could explore a little bit more, and I had a more monetary freedom to really go above and beyond in more of my adventures.
And I guess you made friends beforehand you come to Japan, or during you were in Japan. Like, how did you find your Japanese friends all over Japan?
Mostly through italki. On italki's service, they have language partners. And on there, I met my friend, I met several friends in Tokyo. Even though my university was in Osaka, I went to Tokyo every other week.
Yes, I know.
So yes, it's crazy. And I went to Shizuoka, which is a place that not many people go to on a day-to-day basis. Especially if you're traveling abroad. If you'd only maybe go there for Mount Fuji, but not rural Japan. And I have a very dear friend that lives there, and I met him also through italki. And most of my friends I met through italki, or on Facebook, I might have met them in San Francisco, and then I went back to Tokyo and I met them. But a lot of people I met through my adventures, just going around from different places. Until this date, I try to keep in touch with most of them.
Yeah, I think I met italki founder Kevin last year, but I think this story makes him happy, because I met Amit too through italki, and I met amazing many people through italki. But you could meet not only teachers, students, basis, but also you can make friends using language partners. So that's really amazing.
Yeah, it really does. But I believe that most people are afraid to try some of these things. And people who really want to, grow in their language skills can supplement, not just the classes, can supplement from taking help from native speakers. That will supplement their ability to learn the language. So just exposing yourself to many different sources of people speaking the language will definitely help you pick up the language much faster than just taking online classes. The online classes are a great starter, but they are not the end all, mean all for all your classes. They should, you should definitely practice every day.
Mm.
So.
Yeah, and also for language learning, motivation is one of the most important things. And in your case, you have lots of friends, so you feel like, oh, I have to study Japanese because I want to, talk with my friends, my Japanese.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my friends motivate me, and they want to learn English just as much I want to learn Japanese.
Mm.
So that, you know, this kind of exchange of languages, which is what the language partner, like, you know, program is all about.
Mm.
It definitely helps me. It keeps me motivated to help them learn English, but it also motivates them to help me learn Japanese.
Mm.
And together we're like growing our language skills, which is kind of the whole point of italki.
Yeah, great. That's really good. And not only language, but I guess your way of one of the very good thing about learning language is you can learn there is a totally different world or different value of way of thinking in the world, I guess. So
Right.
in my case, after I start learning English, I feel like, wow, there is a different world. People think or act in totally different way, and which was great because sometimes in Japanese society, I feel a little bit too strict and too much pressure, social pressure. So in your case, is there any like wow kind of experience, like you found different way of thinking after you lived in Japan?
I will say one of the classes I took, which is like introduction of how businesses are conducted in Japan, that was a pretty like eye-opening experience.
Mhm.
To learn that it's not, it's not driven as like a capitalistic society 100%. There's a lot of uh, communalism, people helping each other.
Mm.
Um, those type of things you can't find in a Western world very often,
Mm.
and that's just by the nature of the society. But that also you there was a lot of like explaining of like why people in Japan go to nomikai events, or why they socialize outside of work, or a
Mm.
lot of people, to the point that they have to create laws to prevent people from overworking, from
Mm.
becoming sick. And like I've never really like experienced that working in America.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's because here people value more individual freedom,
Mm.
but Japan, it's more about the collective whole.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something I had never really experienced outside in the world, and that for me was like an eye-opening experience.
I see.
And the class itself was introducing like how businesses run, where people sit, every single aspect was laid out, and it made total sense as someone who's looking from outside.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure if I'd be able to cope with that if I was living within that society.
I see. I think, yeah, one of the good thing is you choose Osaka, and I think you did a good choice because Osaka is itself is a big city, but it's close to Kyoto, which is an ancient capital,
Yes.
2,000 years, and there are lots of businesses, 300 years, 400 years, or sometimes 1,000 years they are doing businesses. So
Right.
yeah, it's really totally way of thinking is totally different. So
Exactly.
mm.
Yeah. And I also had I know from Akari Sensei and we went on several adventures together,
Mm.
um, such as like the startup. We
Mm.
went to like startup meetings together.
Yes.
We try to create our own startup business ideas. And during like, even though our ideas weren't as successful as others, we did meet many people in Japan who had startup companies.
Mm.
And I work in the automotive industry, and I met somebody who made electric vehicles in Kyoto and who had a startup. He was the president of the startup.
Mm. Mm.
And I thought that was amazing. That I don't think I would have normally have met these people in maybe like language exchanges,
Right.
but going to like startup events in in an area where like these type of startup industries are about to boom, I think that was like a very valuable experience.
Mm.
And I recommend anybody who does end up, staying or living here is to go to these like either meetup events or like startup events, and to kind of learn more than just the culture and the language, and like you really learn how people think, and that is most important because that will actually shape the way you learn the language and how you interact in society.
Right. Yeah, it was fun. We went to startup weekend together and
Right.
we were on the same team, and we think about the new ideas. And yeah, that's very true. You should join local events, and yeah, you can understand Japanese culture more.
Exactly. Yeah. And like I even went to non-local events. Like Akari Sensei and I also went to a sake tasting event. Um, and I don't think there were many foreigners there. Um, but like the idea, like yes, we were there to drink sake, but more than that, it was a pretty interesting experience of people doing like their showman skills of advertising their business
Mm.
and enticing new customers to buy into their sake. All the while, you get to taste this, the sake, which is wine in Japan, from many different areas of Japan, and you get to be in like an immersive experience. And it was a great experience. I had a lot of fun, but
Mm.
it was also like kind of interesting to see how people are selling their ideas or business ideas, and trying to sell it to maybe someone like me as a foreigner who might not understand it in a lot of Japanese, but I could still understand what they're trying to convey in their messages, and I was able to pick along in their conversations, and try to follow along in what they're saying.
なるほど。I see. I'm glad you remember many things.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, last question. I just wonder, like, do you have any advice for the people who is thinking to visit or stay or work in Japan?
I can only give advice from probably someone who wants to stay in Japan. I only stay in Japan for 6 months. And that too, I was a university student where a lot of my necessities were paid for from the university itself.
Mm.
So my advice would be try to immerse yourself in many different activities. Don't stay at home. I know it's, living in a different country by itself is very scary. But in order to really be successful and to really, get out there and, explore not just the language and culture, but also the, places and, different people to meet. Join all these local events. There's many different meetup events. Meetup has a lot of like active communities in the area. And see if there's local university events that you can attend, or if you can, volunteer in something, get active in the community. Those things will really help you not just get to know more people, but get to know how Japanese people think. As someone who's lived in America and some other countries my whole life, it's very different from what we might like see from the Western world. What I perceive as a lot of competition. In Japan, that competition is more hidden, and it takes form in different business ventures, or how people study or people go to juku. It's very different. It's presented in a very different manner. And I don't think I would have learned that unless I had partook in many of these events, or I got to know some of these people who did partake in these events.
I see. That's a very good advice, because I think one of the reasons why your stay was so good is you communicate not only students, but also you mingle with not only students, but also like adults, like many like range of people, like
Yes.
diverse people. So that helps you to understand Japan more. and
Yeah,
make
I,
many
I,
friends.
I mean, I did kind of some outlandish things at some points, but um, at the end, my like from a holistic view, I was trying to get the most of my experiences in the time I had, which is 6 months. And initially, like the first 2 months, I was very scared,
Mm,
and I used to stay at home and maybe venture out my house to see some friends or something like that.
mm,
And the only friends I really had were within the university.
mm,
The university did do a very good job of trying to set you up with a language partner and
mm,
to get to interact with
mm,
the local students there and the local populace.
mhm,
But eventually, I realized like I had to do more than just what the university offered.
mm,
And so I started going to, for example, I used to go to Takyu, which is ping pong,
mm,
every Wednesday. And that was in downtown Osaka.
mm,
And I used to go to many sporting events like playing frisbee or ultimate frisbee or volleyball.
mm,
Um, and those were in different like all those meetup events were held by people who only spoke Japanese.
mm.
Maybe a few foreigners, but like majority Japanese people. And it was interesting. Like it was more than just a drinking event or something like that. We were actually playing sports together, or
Mm,
we went on hiking,
I see.
events. And on some places they even took me to like we went like pretty far away islands,
Mm,
just to go exploring.
mm.
And so these type of events, I would not have discovered if I had just sheltered in place.
Yeah, I remember like before you come, you were a little bit worried like about your living environment or the city. But at the end of the, I mean, at the last part, I couldn't catch you. You were so busy. Like, are you free this weekend? And you said like,
Yeah,
oh, I'm go to Tokyo this weekend, or
yeah,
I was
yep,
in Fukuoka, and then last few months, your family also visit you in Japan, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
So though I had like the honor of taking my family as a tour guide around Japan,
Mm.
and we went through many cities. I can give like a basic itinerary. We went around Osaka and Kyoto and Nara and Kobe.
Mm.
And then we took the Shinkansen, which is the bullet train. We took it to Hiroshima,
Mm.
Okayama, Kurashiki,
Mhm.
and then we went to Fukuoka, and then we went around Fukuoka for a couple of days, and then we went to Nagasaki,
Wow.
and then we flew back to Tokyo. We
Mm.
stayed in Tokyo for a few more days, and I took them through Hakone in Shizuoka.
Mhm.
This was all like we all had the Shinkansen railway pass, so we could like do a lot more of these adventures with more freedom.
Mm.
Um,
Your family
and
enjoyed it?
excuse me,
Your family enjoyed it?
yes, they loved it. We met some like pretty interesting people. Like in my family, my heritage is from India, so my parents are Indian, and I'm second generation American here. My parents moved when I was very young.
Mm.
I was born in America and then they moved here. And they speak Hindi and they don't speak any Japanese whatsoever. So I was doing most of the translation for them, and they all speak English, obviously.
Mm.
Um, and in Nagasaki, for example, we went to a restaurant that was owned by an Indian owner,
Oh,
and we didn't know, but a lot of people from India, a lot of sailors stop in Nagasaki as a port, as a destination.
I see.
Um, and a lot of trade in and out of Japan from, let's say, India to Japan trade happens through Nagasaki from Dojima and stuff like that.
Mm.
So, Dejima, I think. So from these small port cities,
Mhm.
there were a lot of Indian sailors, and we found very authentic Indian food in Japan. Um, the funny thing was, my parents were speaking to me in Hindi.
Mm.
I was speaking to them in Hindi and English,
Mhm.
and the person who was taking our order was speaking in Japanese. And that was the first time I had a trilingual exchange where I had to basically translate between 3 languages,
Wow.
between Japanese and then back to English for myself to understand, and then that into Hindi. And that was like a very interesting and very tough experience, but yeah, it was great. I really loved it.
I see. Wow, that's interesting. You found India in Japan.
Yeah, I found authentic Indian restaurants in Japan. I was very surprised.
I see. So it means like staying in Japan is not only finding Japan, but also finding your origin too. So that's really interesting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much. I think this interview is really helpful for somebody who is thinking to come and study in Japan. So I'll promote them to listen.
Sure. Yeah. Anytime.
Thank you so much, Yomit. Okay, so I
Thank
would
you so much for having me.
thank you.
Bye bye.